we've got our first keynote of the day. Please, let's give a warm welcome to the Chief Excellence Officer from CNX, Mr. Olayemi Akinkugbe.
Thank you very much. All right, I got to make sure I can maneuver this. Feels a little better now. I think someone fixed the temperature. Kept me quite awake in the previous presentation. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I know some of you, I don't know, some of you might have seen my presentation before, but my name again is Olayemi Akinkugbe. I work with CNX Resources. The Chief Excellence Officer at CNX Resources. Some of you ask, what does that even mean? Primarily, my responsibility initially was working with operations and the corporate team, making sure they are working in excellence. And what does excellence mean? It's not perfection. It is kind of creating an atmosphere and an organization where we continue to learn, we continue to improve, we continue to execute on a daily basis with excellence. Right now, one of my responsibilities now is pretty much external relations, making sure people understand what natural gas does, people understand what energy does, and trying to be an advocate for clean energy within the Appalachian region. And that's what this stands for. So what I'm going to be talking about is just trying to set the stage, first of all. What consequence does bad policy brings to economy as a whole? And then talk about our vision, CNX's vision, when it comes to how we can improve the Appalachian Basin. So the name goes Appalachia First. But I'll start with setting the stage with a few things when it comes to natural gas. CNX is almost a 160-year-old company, a 160-year-old company. And one of the things I did was, let me look at back when CNX was incorporated. I mean, a key fact here was Abraham Lincoln was in the White House when CNX was incorporated. So looking at what we were then, or what were the factors that was driving the United States economy, that was driving life, that was driving society at that time, and look at how it has changed today. So a few facts. Back then, we're talking about in the 1860s, the population of the country was about 31 million. Today, it's about 330 plus million. The other thing that was really significant then was the fact that natural disasters, the effect, the death toll when it came to natural disasters on a yearly basis was about 0.1% of the population back then. Today is 0.00000. We can keep counting the zeros percentage of the population. You could ask, what does that have to do with energy? Well, it is energy that helps us, one, be able to predict environmental patterns, that help us to predict climate patterns, that help us to monitor, when these disasters are happening. All the satellites that we have up there, energy drove them there. All the technology that we have today, energy drove them there. Another key fact, life expectancy then was in the 30s. Today, it's 79 and climbing. I mean, especially the older generation right now, the fact that they want to increase Social Security, and a lot of people are not happy about that. We know what's happening in France. That's a testament to development within society today. That is energy. Energy is the lifeblood of developments in society, without question. And I can go on and on and on and on. I mean, one information probably to go back in the 1970s, let's move it forward, back in the 1970s, the United States used to import about 36% of its energy. 36%. Today, we're about net zero. That is the true net zero. And the key point here is we need to stop apologizing for what we do or for what we've done. The benefit that we enjoy today is as a result of what energy has done, what reliable, efficient, low-cost energy has done till today. And a key thing for us is, sometimes, our team or some of our team or some of our members, they just, hey, look, just leave us alone. Let's just do what we can do. I don't think we have an excuse for such statements going forward. And I'll show you why. This is a satellite picture, a night picture of the world. And clearly the reason for night picture is to show the electrification rate of the world. The electrification rate of the world. One thing that will be very obvious to people is that continent right there. And I'm originally from that continent, and that's why I precisely picked it. When you look at sub-Saharan Africa, 1.2 plus billion people live there. Night picture, what do you see? Not much. And when you start looking at the state of affairs of the society, it is not good at all. Life expectancy, mortality rate, electrification rate, it's horrible. Now, truth be told, that part of that continent has tremendous amount of resources. Natural gas, oil, rare earth metals, they have everything, they have it all. But it is dark when it's dark. That is a fact. The hospital rate, the GDP, the food provisions, it's not there. We enjoy a lot in the United States. We benefit a lot in the United States, and sometimes some people will say that's why we actually fight the benefit that we have. I don't understand it. I grew up there, all right? And I know what it is. Actually, I was just talking to Kim. I just came from there on Sunday. And I knew what it was, or what it is, not to have electricity, to flip a switch and not have electricity. I know exactly what it is. I experienced it last Sunday, all right? Unreliable grid, unreliable electricity delivery system. That's a problem. It is not something far off. It is existence. And when you look at the consequence of such an environment, the consequence of such a society, I don't think anybody in the United States, anybody in the developed world wants to go back there. And that's where policy matters. That's where policy matters. You're probably going to hear a few things that is a little bit contradicting or a different light, not contradicting, but in a different light as to what Patty and Vicky just talked about. And when it comes to policy, you know, we are a firm believer in fair market. The government shouldn't be picking winners and losers when it comes to energy. The reason why natural gas is so prolific today is because of efficiency that was developed by the producers, and they made it cheaper. Cheap, low-cost energy displaced coal as like the predominant energy source. That's what fair market does. And let's start talking about the United States. This is Storm Uri, and what you're seeing is Texas. You know, Texas normally at night, and Texas during Storm Uri. And you could see clearly what the difference is. That was a short time frame. 4 million people actually experienced what we now call today grid unreliability, energy failure. 4 million people, and we had deaths, unfortunately. Unfortunately, people passed away as a result. That is not that's not a sign, or that's not something that we want to continue to see. Grid unreliability is a real thing. Policies that we've put in place are not helping it. They're actually hampering it and pretty much bringing it backwards. Well, let's move from Texas to Europe. An entire continent. Now, we're not talking about a state, within a country. We're talking about an entire continent was in crisis, energy crisis, last year. You can't make this kind of things up. They were in crisis. You can actually boil that down to some of the policies put in place. Now, someone would say, you know, it was lack of, you know, they suffered from lack of imagination, you know, lack of critical thinking, scenario playing. But bottom line is a policy. They, you know, they go and embrace policy of not having full, diversified energy sources. When you pick winners and losers, we don't want this, we want this, well, you suffer the consequence. A decision by a country to invade another country pretty much wreaked havoc on the entire world. Europe suffered the worst of it. The energy prices was absolutely unbearable. When in normal times, people who travel to Europe, in normal times, the cost of energy in Europe is very expensive. Now, pile on top of that, the issue that they had to deal with. Energy policies matter. It might sound or seem innocuous when it's passed. The consequence, we bear it for decades. The joke that I make is, you know, look, especially each and every one of us, we've grown in the generation where we enjoyed the benefits of regular energy, regular power. You know, good, you go to the hospital, there's power there, there's technology to help us. I mean, we enjoyed the longevity, life expectancy that I put up there. What are we going to leave our kids? They have enough to deal with. I mean, Facebook, chit chat, or Snapchat, they're dealing with that. They should not be dealing with energy unreliability, all right? And that's where, you know, CNX, our view is we are from the Appalachian Basin. We are from the Appalachian Basin. Our roots for the 160 plus years has been in the Appalachian Basin. Our energy source is in the Appalachian Basin. Our company, our workers, everything, they are in the Appalachian Basin. Our focus and our vision is Appalachia First. We have benefit from the resources of Appalachia. We want to continue to invest in the resources of Appalachia to benefit the people of the Appalachian Basin. Gone are the times wherein we continue to ship away, you know, our energy resources to some foreign land, and I'll touch on it, some foreign land, wherein our, again, low-cost, efficient, reliable energy resource. We ship it over there for them to make products that they come back and sell to us at a higher price. And yet, we're not engaging our people within the region, you know, for the benefit of actually monetizing and benefiting from the resource that is here, bringing manufacturing to the Appalachian region. So what we say is, look, we produce it here, we use it here first. Now, we build our economy, you know, we put people to work, we increase, we increase the what we call life-sustaining, family-sustaining wages for the people of the Appalachian region. That is the way to go. That's how to build economy. That is the right economy to build. We are within the heart of the population of the United States. A lot of people don't know this. 50% of the population of the United States are just a day's travel from this region. 50%. So if this is not the concentration of a region or the benefit, economic powerhouse of a region, I don't know what is. We have local energy, we have infrastructure in place, and we have the logistics in place. So you ask yourself, why can't we build the right economy for our region? Why shouldn't we build the right economy for our region? Why should we actually shun the resource that has made the Appalachian region what it is today and built the United States to what it is today? Why are we now backing away from it? That's a question we continue to ask. That's a question we'll continue, to ask going forward, especially to the policymakers. Natural gas, from our standpoint, is a catalyst, not a bridge fuel. It is not a bridge fuel. It is a catalyst. And the catalyst for new development, the catalyst for bringing back manufacturing, the catalyst for technological development, innovation within the region. The reason why is because energy is the lifeblood of any development. Energy is the lifeblood. And may I qualify that low-cost energy, reliable energy, it is the true lifeblood of any development or any society when it comes to economic development. We have it in abundance. There's still a lot of opportunities to actually continue to harness the power or the benefits of natural gas. Take, for example, transportation. Transportation is one vast area. Yes, we are very focused on emissions. We should be focused on emissions, but there is a significant opportunity, from on the transportation aspect of it. Vicky was talking about, the plan for EV to go to 50% of the administration's plan for it to go to 50% of vehicles on the road. Okay, maybe they're able to actually achieve that. What's going to charge all of those vehicles? Those are questions that nobody really asks. What grid is going to charge all of those vehicles? I know it's sexy to actually say those things. It's vote getting, but when it comes to the practicality, it's absolutely nonsense. It is nonsense. Now, the United States is even behind other continents when it comes to utilizing natural gas, LNG, CNG for transportation. We're behind. And given the fact that it is also low cost, there's an opportunity, an economic benefit to actually be able to do that. When you're looking at Pennsylvania, for example, 40% of the emission reduction in Pennsylvania was as a result of natural gas. And we have not even touched the point of actually using natural gas in transportation and aviation. I'll touch on that a little bit. Let's talk about the renewables. And I'll start with this. I'll be very clear about this. I am not anti-renewable. I am not anti-solar. I'm not anti-wind. What I am very passionate about is when we are talking about energy diversity, we need to make sure that we put everything in level playing field. We're not picking winners or losers. When we're talking about, hey, look, the cost of this versus the cost of this, well, all the incentives to actually make, some energy segment a lot more competitive, there is no free lunch. You and I are going to be paying for it, or our kids are going to be paying for it. So when you're looking at it purely based on its standing, it is very expensive. Energy is expensive in California and definitely expensive in Europe. And once those policies are passed, or once those policies are being contemplated, nobody truly, puts it in perspective on how it actually affects the most vulnerable within our society. Yeah, the mindset will be, okay, we're giving a tax credit right now. A tax credit doesn't stand forever. It puts it in place, and once it goes away, who pays, who picks up the pieces after that? It is the vulnerable. It is the low-income society. And what kind of a society, what kind of moral code are we setting up, for such within our society? The other aspect of this, when you're talking about, some of the emissions relating to wind and solar, guess what? Some of those things are mined somewhere. The materials are mined somewhere. They're processed somewhere, and the processing structures around it emits a lot of energy. A lot of carbon associated with that. The mining has a lot of carbon associated with it. Then it is transported. Then it is land transported to location of installing it. So there is nothing such as zero emissions. No, there is none. That I can tell you for a fact. The other thing, especially when we start talking about solar and even some of this wind, is where those things are mined. How they are mined. Someone wrote a book called Cobalt Red, and talking about the conditions, especially for the materials in batteries and where it's being mined. and the conditions, again, using slave labor, using child labor, it's horrible. Now, look, we get into our EVs, we pick our phones, we're all fine with it, but the amount of sweat and blood, and from where those sweat and blood are being gotten from, if we ever hear or see it, my first inclination is everyone in this room will be very sick of it. Yeah, we want to grow. We want to grow EVs, we want to grow solar, we want to grow wind, but at what cost? What kind of moral bankruptcy are we willing to go in order to actually achieve this? Again, renewables are good. I'm not saying they're bad. EVs are good if they are done right. If they are done right. I don't think anybody here wants to actually don't want to put a 4-year-old in a mine, digging with their hands, and drinking horrible water in order to provide you with elements or materials or minerals for you to have in order to drive a fancy vehicle that has, quote unquote, zero emissions. It is not zero emissions. It is definitely not zero emissions. We have an opportunity with natural gas when it comes to transportation. Again, first of all, let's clean that other aspect of it when it comes to the EVs, because it is definitely not clean. The supply chain with EVs, the supply chain with solar, the supply chain with wind, they are not zero. They are not clean. And might I add, they are not moral. Let's clean all of that up. While that is being cleaned up, we can leverage what we have, which is natural gas, low, abundant, efficient, reliable natural gas, and use it to continue to reduce emissions. Natural gas can displace oil. It can displace a lot of its higher hydrocarbon materials there. Asia Pacific continents, they're using it. They're doing it right now. And more so when you're looking at aviation, natural gas can play a significant role in aviation. LNG can power planes. LNG can do that, especially when you're comparing the emission signature of LNG to the typical aviation fuel. We can do that. The question you ask is, why are policymakers not even pushing this? Why are they not even talking about this? The mindset is, hey, pick winners and losers. I'll give you an example. There was a time we were actually approached I think it's the largest school bus company within this region. And we're discussing, hey, look, there's an opportunity to actually supply natural gas. If you guys start switching to natural gas, we'll supply the natural gas. We'll work with you on that. And the head of it was saying, we're not doing that. We are going electric. Now, the logical question, okay, interesting. How many electric buses do you have? I think in probably tens of thousands of buses that they run. 2. So you're going to be turning electric within how many years? We're looking at 5 years. How are you going to charge all of this? There was no critical thinking associated with that. Again, it is the sexy talk, but it is all talk. Practicality of it falls flat on its face. Maybe we'll get to a lot of electric vehicles someday, but we better make sure that the grid is reliable to be able to actually handle that. I think I hit on this. Appalachian energy realities. Natural gas displaced coal primarily based on economics, efficiency, market efficiency, production efficiency, and the prices went down. There's a significant opportunity for more efficiencies in the natural gas business, not just on the extraction, but also in the delivery. One of the things we've been hearing, and we're seeing it, is a situation wherein, the natural gas, the pipeline system is strangled. I was just reading yesterday, MVP ran into another roadblock, and they're not sure whether they're going to be able to deliver that pipeline system this year, and they might be looking at 2024. And I know some people are also gambling in Nevada right now to see whether that pipeline is ever going to come to fruition. But that is the kind of policy we have right now, that, you know, strangling the delivery system for natural gas. And then turn around and blame natural gas when, you know, power is not delivered. You know, during the Christmas time, you know, I actually read on one of the, an editorial from, maybe you guys have seen it, and someone wrote an editorial saying, hey, look, the reason why we had an issue in Christmas wherein, you know, some power plants were called and they weren't able to come online was because natural gas was unreliable. And you ask yourself, wait, we've been running natural gas. I mean, that's a reliable system, it's a proven system. But the delivery system for getting natural gas to some of these power plants are strangled. Redundancy doesn't exist. So they keep everything to single point source. I mean, MVP is supposed to help with redundancy, you know, multiple sources, but we all see what's going on with MVP today. And when issues happen, when non-reliability happens, it's always easy. Yeah, you see what we mean regarding unreliable grid going forward. That's a problem. That's the consequence of bad policy and strategies. You know, again, to actually pick winners and losers. I wonder who's making all the money when they do that. Challenges of renewable. I think Vicky went through a few of the challenges. It's expensive. Once we start to clean up the supply chain of the renewables, you see it a lot more expensive again. But also the redundancy associated with it is a challenge. It's something that needs to be worked out. I mean, I believe in human ingenuity. I expect someday maybe it'll be worked out. But forcing it into the entire system and actually being delusioned that this is the solution doesn't make any sense. I wonder if someone can actually, you know, tell me how many acres of our land will it take to actually, let's take out natural gas and put in solar. Yeah, it's going to take millions. Disruption. And once we do that, some of this, probably someone can tell me, I don't know the lifespan, I think it's about, again, between 10 to 20 years of, you know, a solar panel where you have to replace it, and also the battery system that you got to replace it. What is going to happen to that e-waste? Maybe someone has figured that out, but I don't think so. Where are we going to put all of that e-waste? If we're talking about environmental catastrophe, maybe as a result of all of that, that's an issue we have to deal with. Those are the challenges of renewables. That still needs to be worked out. And the renewables that are being put in place right now today are still being backed up by natural gas. So hey, you install that capacity in order to actually have redundancy to be able to not only supply the grid. Natural gas power plants are their backup, and God forbid, in some situations, coal power plants are their backup. There's an opportunity for us to create good system, good processes, good layout, and using the resource that we have. Our vision within CNX is, like I said, produce it here, use it here first. We look at that as it's more efficient, it's economically beneficial to the region, it has a much lower emission footprint because you're using it or you're producing it and using it closer to source, as opposed to a different vision wherein, hey, you ship it over there, giving the foreign government, adversarial government, your low energy to build their economy and then ship back to you with all that emission signature regarding that transportation process. And then you pay for the product and the commodities that's being sent back to you. That doesn't work. That is absolutely, someone would say, insane. was insane. I have a first-hand experience in that. Okay, I'm from Nigeria, all right? I came from Nigeria. Nigeria is probably, I'll probably say the top 10 oil and gas producer in the world. When you look at OPEC, is a member of OPEC. Now, Nigeria, they produce a lot of petroleum product. They import refined product. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's similar to what we're doing here. We're producing here, shipping it there, and then we're getting products that was used with the energy, our clean energy. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why we're saying this is the time for Appalachia to actually come alive. Let's change that policy. It is time for us to speak up and change that policy. We shouldn't be getting goods from China that we can make in Appalachia. We shouldn't be getting goods in Malaysia or Russia or anywhere else that we can make in Appalachia using our clean energy. It's cleaner that way. Not one, we don't know the kind of labor force that has been used in China. We don't know, I mean, China is growing their coal fleet like crazy. These are things, these are common sense processes, common sense policies, common sense structure that we are advocating. We're advocating as a company, we're advocating as a region. I think it's about time it takes effect. Let me give you an example of one of the things, I was talking about aviation. We've been working with the Pittsburgh International Airport. So the first phase of our partnership with Pittsburgh International Airport was to develop the resource in that location. So we started to drill. Now the Pittsburgh International Airport, they are leveraging the natural gas on site to generate electricity. They have a microgrid. They are off the grid. They are self-reliant when it comes to energy or electricity generation. Now we've progressed it to the next phase of our partnership with them. And here is when we're starting to look at technologies to revolutionize aviation. Aviation fuel is a heavy fuel. It has a lot of carbon signature to it. The aviation industry has an emission goal. They have an emission goal. How are they going to achieve that? I'm afraid I don't want to get on a plane that is relying on solar, and then I got to charge it mid-air. I'm being facetious, obviously. But there are other options, there are other opportunities. And one huge opportunity is to use natural gas. We can leverage that. And Pittsburgh Airport, they are in it with us right now to actually achieve that. The other one, and this is where people are starting to see the benefit and the power of the resource that we have in place. This is a California company, and they've worked out a technology where they're using microorganisms that consume, wait for it, methane. It consumes methane, and the byproduct of that is what they call air carbon. Air carbon is pretty much a plastic replacement, biodegradable plastic replacement. They see the benefit of natural gas within our region, and they're bringing their manufacturing into the region. That's how we put our people to work. That's how we start to revitalize the economy of our region. Let's leverage the low cost, and you hear me say it, the low cost, efficient, reliable natural gas to grow the Appalachian economy. It starts with us actually speaking up regarding policies, detrimental policies. It starts with us standing up and speaking up as to the benefit that we bring to the society. What we've done in the past, the benefit we've done, and the tremendous amount of benefits we have in the future. I think that with that, I'll take any questions.
What was the name of that book you referenced about the dubious labor to support electric vehicles?
Cobalt red.
Cobalt red?
Yes.
Okay.
Cobalt red. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on exporting LNG. The problem is it's commodity market driven, and anytime somebody sees a big spread, guess where the commodity is?
Yeah, if even oil, I mean, sure some of you read, probably surprised information yesterday that OPEC just all of a sudden changed that they're going to start cutting oil production. Now, granted, and this is where the U.S. economy needs to decouple itself from the, seaborne oil prices. Now, they can decide to do all of that. We could be producing oil here in abundance, but as long as we're hitched to that pricing, they're setting our pricing. You're right. Same thing with LNG. Well, all of a sudden, once you see, okay, fine, LNG is high there, people will start thinking about shipping it, shipping our commodities in that direction. But when you look at it on the long run, it's detrimental to the economy of the country. Yeah, it might be a little bit benefit, and that is where that's where policymakers are totally blinded to the long run impact of such policies. That's the issue. That's why we're always against, policymakers picking winners or losers and trying to subsidize one side and also ignoring the very, very impactful supply chain impact that it brings to the table. Any other question? Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right.
So you spoke about CNX advocating for this. Can you tell us, in your opinion, or in CNX's opinion, what anybody in this room can do to join those efforts?
Excellent question. The entire society right now is very digital. Is very digital. Social media. Some of you might see us on social media. Follow us. When there's strength in numbers. Some people like to be quiet, but there are situations wherein you can like things so that it spreads out even more. For example, on LinkedIn, we are very active on LinkedIn. We're very active on Twitter. Some of you might be aware of our CEO, Nick DeLulios, is very active, and so also some of the members of our executive management team. As we continue to spread, we develop some of this studies, and we put it out there. The more we can get people educated, especially the policymakers. Some of the policymakers are not educated enough to actually make the right policy. The more we can educate them, this is kind of like using social media as best as we can. When we actually want to actually address a senator and we need support, we need signatures and things like that, that's how we can all get involved. I think it's time for us to all speak up. I think it's time for people to hear our voice as it relates to kind of like addressing some of this ill-conceived policies out there. Thank you.